Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly,
he's our
dad who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, let me say good Tuesday evening to all of you across our beloved Zion. I am Skip Mason, and I am delighted to share with you this evening as we share with the families of two of our distinguished bishops, Bishop Chester Arthur Kirdendoll and Bishop Oree Broomfield. I am so delighted to have members of their family here with me for the next hour to come and to reflect and to reminisce about their father and grandfather, and to share some things, husband as well, and to share some things about them as we celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. Now, what I need for you to do is to host a watch party. Very easy. Wherever you're watching, just hit the share button and it'll invite others to come and share. Of course, we record this conversation and people will get a chance to view the interview forever and a day. But we are always excited when we have those of you watching live. We had a wonderful discussion with Bishop Kenneth W. Carter on Sunday, and I thank all of you for engaging. And on this coming Sunday at 5:00 p.m., we will share with the 58th Bishop of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, Bishop Sylvester Williams. And I'm so looking forward to engaging with him. But tonight we are going to share with the family of our 45th Bishop, Bishop Oree Broomfield. But let me play this first.
Folk in the church, they see this sitting straight in this, and one young lady was talking to me before service. I said, "What do you do?" Oh, I sing in the choir. I said, "What do you do for?"
Well, those of you may remember that was the voice of Bishop Oree Broomfield, and it is my delight to bring to the screen his beloved wife, Sister Willeen Broomfield, and Brother Leonard Broomfield, and their daughter, Sister Talicia Davis. And I hope that I'm pronouncing all of the names right, but I'm so delighted to have you all with us on this evening. And let me say greetings. How you all doing tonight?
Greetings. We are doing very well. Thank you.
Well, good. You know, I count Sister Broomfield as my friend. You know, I don't see as much as I used to, but you know, I see her at general conferences. I always get a picture with her for my collection, and of course, she is the sister of one of my church fathers, Brother Charles Parham. I grew up in the West Side CME Church, so I'm just delighted to have you all with us this evening. Sister Broomfield, let me put this picture up first. And I think this will be our conversation starter, because I thought this was just such a very dapper picture of your husband. Tell me about this young man and when you first met him.
Well, I met him when I was in college, at Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. He was attending Gammon Theological Seminary in Atlanta.
Yes.
And he was pastoring at Rock of Ages Church in Augusta.
That's right.
While he was going to seminary. And we used to go, he would send cars, maybe once a month, have the student preachers preach, you know, at his church. And he would have some of the young ladies to sing solos and so forth. And I would go to the church and I would play for them while they sang. And he said he was watching me.
Well, obviously he not only watched you, but he fell in love with you, and he proposed to you, and you all married and had a beautiful family. And isn't that something? You were at Payne College, and he was pastoring. So I'm assuming he was driving or taking some mode of transportation to get down to Augusta.
Yes, on the weekend, some of the students at Gammon would come. Some of the pastors, they would come that way. It
Yeah.
was a group of them, and they would go to their various churches. And he would come to Rock of Ages, to
One
his
of the
church.
great churches in Augusta, Rock of Ages. And so you all were married. Where were you married, Sister Broomfield?
We
Beautiful
were
picture,
married.
by the way.
We were married in Manchester, Georgia. That was my home then when we
Okay.
married.
Married in Manchester. That's a beautiful picture of the two of you. So after you all married, what next? You became a minister's spouse, as they call them, minister's wife. Where was he assigned after you all were married, or was he still at Rock of Ages?
Um, well, we both graduated. I graduated in May from Payne College. He graduated from Gammon.
Gammon, right?
And yes, and of course, we had already been communicating just for a year.
Okay.
And soon after we both graduated, we married in June 23rd.
Wow. And prior to Gammon, he was a student at Lane College. I think this is from the freshman yearbook, and then he, of course, later came back to Phillips School of Theology for his doctor a ministry degree. But he was very active with the church. This says clipping he was honored from Taylorville, Mississippi. District local president of the F. Work League, recording steward, superintendent of Sunday school, and chairman of the steward board. My goodness, he was quite busy.
Yes, he always wanted. He was connected to the church. He
Yeah,
always wanted to preach, and um, that was his home church, the little church in Taylorsville.
in Taylorsville, right,
Yeah,
right.
but he actually graduated from MI College.
Okay, that's right. He graduated from Mississippi Industrial
Yeah.
College. Well, can you tell us about his family? I think I have a photo of his mother, and let me put that up. What do you remember about his mother? And any of you welcome to chime in.
Well, well, we would visit Taylorsville in Mississippi. She was also well. Most of his family were Baptists, but
Oh,
he grew up in the CME church. He and one other brother, and but we would go to Taylorsville to visit them, and she was always had that good soul food.
yeah.
Yeah.
She was a good cook. Now, these are
Yeah,
Bishop Broomfield's siblings. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Yeah.
Mine
Okay.
was one. He was there were 8 of them, but one was deceased at that
I
time.
see. I see. So, I'm seeing a pattern as I've interviewed some of the bishops. Several of them that I've spoken with have come from households that were not CME households, Baptist households, Pentecostal households as well. So I'm kind of seeing a little pattern, a little pattern there. Well, you all married, and were you moving around a lot? Were you traveling with him uh, after he was at Rock of Ages? What are some of the other churches that he pastored, Sister Broomfield?
Okay, okay. When we got married in Manchester,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he was assigned. He had already been assigned to West Point Emmanuel Chapel
Mm-hmm.
and Harmony in West Point, Georgia. And so we were there for 1 year after we married. And
Okay.
he always wanted to go back to Mississippi. So after that, we went to to serve at Anderson Chapel in Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Okay. Okay.
And did you want me to tell about all? I can tell you. And then after that, well, he was an activist, civil rights activist, and
Yes.
we heard about him. So
I saw that, and I saw some things that you shared with me. You all shared with me in terms of his involvement. Obviously, very involved in the community in his lifetime, and with different calls to action, and so this was something that was just in his spirit, to be engaged in the community. Would you say that?
Oh, yes, he was always engaged because he was from Mississippi. He was not he was not pleased with some of the things that were going on. So Bishop Bunton heard about his involvement in Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
He was chair of a president, I guess, of the Voters League in Mississippi. You had to take a test to vote.
Yes.
And so many of the people, they gave you a test on some part of the Constitution, whatever part that they decide they want to give. And so he had a group they called the Voters League.
Okay.
And in college, he majored in social studies.
Mm-hmm.
And so he taught them, they studied the Constitution so they could pass the test to vote.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Bishop Bunton heard about that, so he wanted him to come to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
at St.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, let's talk about the bishop as a father, and then of course eventually a grandfather. I got a couple of pictures I want to put up. Here's one minus daughter.
Yeah, that's
hard.
Very humorous.
I guess that was for a Christmas card or picture or something. But Brother Leonard, tell us about your dad.
That was before my daughter was born.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
what do you recall? What's some of your earliest memories of your dad growing up?
Well, the earliest memories, I know we always had to go to church.
Yeah. That's for sure.
So, well, I mean, we had, I remember various churches, St. John. I remember we had, traveled a lot. And my father had a sense of humor.
Okay.
And of course, he was also the disciplinarian of the family. So my brother and I, we when we got out of line, we not like today. I mean, we got what you call in the Bible, spare the rod, spoil the child. So I don't think we got spoiled. So
Sister David, would you agree with that? Or you were the sweet daughter and he never disciplined you?
Well, my mom was more my disciplinarian. I'm a daddy's girl, so he probably took it a little bit light on me.
Right.
But I also grew up different. Like, I'm very much younger than my brother, so I came much later in the game. So, in fact, Oree Jr. was in 12th grade when I was in first grade.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. So you remember, though, traveling and going to church and events with your father and mother?
Yeah. So one of the things I remember, so outside of church, one thing that I remember that was really fun about my dad, and looking back at it now, it probably seems really silly, but it was just on our way to school. He would take me to school every day. And on the way to school, there would be this really steep hill. And at the bottom of that hill, there was a railroad track. And my dad would speed up for me when he would go down that hill so that the car would jump a little bit when we went down the hill. And I just thought that was everything. And he'd do it every day. And it probably wasn't, my mom probably wouldn't have approved of it, but we had fun like that. And then he was so funny. Like, we would drive down the street and there would be nothing in the street I would see. And he would blow the horn. And I said, well, Daddy, what are you blowing the horn at? And he said, you didn't see that fly crossing the street, or you didn't see, it would just be silly things. But I just thought he was everything. I just thought that was so funny. And we just go down the street with him blowing the horn at all these little make-believe things that he saw. So that was just kind of what I remember about him when I was a little bitty girl. And then I was kind of like the youngest. At the time, it was probably William Graves and I were the youngest of the bishop's kids at the time. So I was really, really young. In fact, when my dad was elected, I was going to 6th grade. And I just remember traveling around with them. I thought it was really fun. And then growing up and going to all of the conferences in the 7th. I just remember I have so many friends who are, I'm still close to now. And all of us were preachers' kids and we'd be at the conference. I remember in Carolina, it was like Reverend Williams' kids, the East kids. Just so many. I shouldn't have started naming people because I was skipping over a lot of people, but we just enjoyed being at the conference, and they always had things for kids to do. So Roderick Williams used to teach us. They just had things that were going on. So that was kind of fun. And then the same way up in the New York, Washington conference, Roger Williams Lewis came up there. And, yeah, but we always had fun things to do. So I just remember, I just enjoyed it. We had a great time as kids. It could be kind of awkward sometimes if some of your friends got moved and you wonder, and they didn't want to, and you wondered if they would still be your friends. But for the most part, we just had a great time. I just remember that a lot. I remember I just enjoyed the whole life of it. And one other thing I remember was when I was younger, I really was at this phase where I didn't necessarily like taking baths and, cleaning out. I was kind of a little tomboyish or whatever. And I remember we went to revival one night and Bishop Lakey was preaching. He wasn't bishop at the time. This was when we were at Cedar Crest in Dallas. And I just remember Bishop Lakey's sermon was, "Do you need a bath?" And I just remember my dad looking over at me. So that, like we just used to travel together. I don't know what kind of crazy kid I was, but I enjoyed going to all of those revivals, and we visit churches and preachers and senior citizens. I just I rolled with my dad a lot.
Dr. Skip, I'm a Mason, excuse me. One memory I had, if I may, was my father had a Cadillac. Am I on?
Oh, yeah.
And so sometime after church, he would let me, before I had my license, let me drive back home. We were about maybe a mile away from church. So that was really great. All the kids, saw me, driving home. It may have been in a little assistance there. He may have helped somewhat.
Are we on?
I think we lost the sound. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Hello?
Can you hear us?
They said you're in the show. Well, continue to talk.
Okay. I will continue to tell where he pastored before he became bishop. He pastored at St. John in Washington, D.C.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
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 Very
Yes.
good. Very good.
I don't know if you heard me before.
I did about driving the Cadillac. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So, yes, that was a sort of a fun thing. And I guess from growing up in Mississippi, that was a big car at that time. So he always, I guess, when he got older, he said, well, I'm going to have me a Cadillac.
Yeah.
And that was his car. He had to get a Cadillac.
He got him a Cadillac. Well,
Yep.
and you had the chance to drive it. Brother Leonard, can you fix your phone, your camera, so we can see you or your mother? Since we're doing the triple screen right now. There you go.
There you go.
That's good. That's better. Well, Sister Broomfield, what do you remember about your husband's race or road to becoming bishop? Did he come and ask you and say, honey, I want to run for bishop and I need your blessing and permission? How did that happen?
He didn't ask me for permission.
He just said he wanted to run.
Yes, for bishop. And the first time he ran, he got 19 votes.
Okay.
And I said, well, I encouraged him. I said, well, if you said you wanted to be bishop, just try again. And he did.
Okay.
I didn't have, he was the one. He always wanted to, he had goals in his mind.
Sure.
What he wanted to do, even, from a child.
Right.
He even told me that he had a standard for the wife. He was not going to marry until he finished seminary. And he had certain qualifications that his wife had to have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I sort of remember that. You had to play the piano or something like that.
Well, obviously you met those qualifications and this is from Bishop and Mrs. Gilmore. Mrs. Broomfield is a Payne College schoolmate, and Mrs. Wileen Broomfield and Bishop were classmates at Payne. That's wonderful. So you all have known.
I'm a Payne graduate too.
You are? Oh, wow.
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. That is so good to hear. Well, he was elected bishop, and where was he assigned after he was elected?
He was one of 5 bishops that were elected in 1982, and he was the last one to be elected.
Yeah.
And usually the last bishop who was elected would have to go to Africa. So he was assigned to Africa, the 10th district at that time.
Okay.
And he only served from May until October because Bishop Cummings passed, and they brought him back to the United States to serve. And so he was assigned to the 7th district, and he was the bishop of the 7th district until he retired.
Wow, that's great. That is great. And so as we celebrate our 150th and we look back over the historical legacy of our church and our Episcopal leaders, what is it that we should remember Bishop Broomfield for? What should the church? There's something unique and special about Bishop Broomfield that all of us should remember him by. Would you all give me your thoughts on that? What do you think?
Well, first of all, in the 7th district, they called him the People's Bishop. He was very interested in people. In fact, he even took a course in Dale Carnegie and on speaking and human relations. And he was he was interested in young people. He encouraged people to get their education. He was
Mm-hmm.
interested in educating uh, uh, the young ministers. He encouraged them to go to school. Some of them now tell me that he encouraged them to go and complete their education.
Education, yes.
And he also helped students. We had students when we went to Holly Springs. We had one or two students to live with us in the parsonage to
Oh,
go.
wow.
Um, so he encouraged people, and sometimes he just told them, demanded they do, get continue their education and so
Mm-hmm.
forth.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know whether we have, because he was a school dropout. He was in the Navy,
Okay.
and he because he was not satisfied with his sharecropping. He was born on a sharecropper's farm, so
Okay.
he bounced with different jobs until he registered for the military, and he was in the Navy for 2 years. And this one thing I remember, he told me that he always tried to go to church on Sunday. If he was on duty, he would try to get uh, someone
Someone's mm-hmm.
to serve in his place. So they finally told him to get out of here and go do what you were supposed to do. That was
Wow.
one of he was very much interested in the church.
Yeah.
Let me add also.
Yes, please.
That I think his legacy, he always wanted to, this way. He always wanted concern about the least
Okay.
and helping people. He would always try to help people. Sometimes we would be coming, this was in DC, and he would always hand $1 or $2, like to somebody, out there, homeless
Mm-hmm.
person. So that was really his ministry. The least and the elderly, very concerned about that. And also he wanted to be a people's person. He didn't want to be a person that was like so high that he couldn't be talked to.
Acceptable
So
to
he
people.
talked to everybody.
Right.
He talked to everybody. And that's what
Wow.
I think his legacy to be.
That is tremendous in terms of, just the kind of person that he was. And I'm certain that his legacy lives on in the church and certainly in your family as well. And you all have been so kind to share. I'm just sharing a few more pictures that I have.
Those are the 3 Orees.
Those are the 3 what?
Oree, the first, second, and third.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Very. And that's an interesting name. Is that a family name, Oree? Was somebody named before him?
Not that I know of.
That you know of.
It's just a good Mississippi name.
Yeah, I've tried to look up Broomfield, and I don't know where Oree came from. So
right. Yeah.
I think his legacy would be with the people. He helped a lot of people, and I think his legacy is living on in the lives of many people.
Yes. And you were right there with him, Mrs. Broomfield, and we thank you and your wonderful family for sharing with us briefly the journey. And did he leave any writings and sermons and those kinds of things? Do you all have those?
Actually, my brother came across, it's really special to me. Okay. He came across some of my dad's writings.
Okay.
And so I know you have to go on to the Kirkendolls, but I'll just briefly say he talked about growing up in Mississippi and in Taylorsville, and he came from a broken home. And so he really told us about how people had called him like Broomfield trash, you know.
Oh, no, really?
And so I just wanted to mention that because that shaped his whole life. It shaped his whole life because, you know, he was born in 1927 and getting divorced and things like that were, you know, that's not something you would do, but people called him trash and all of that. And that kind of shaped his whole philosophy. If you knew that about him, you could understand why he put people first. So it wasn't, you know, you would see him pick up someone who was drunk on the street or, you know, he just was comfortable because he knew what it was like.
Right, right.
And that kind of just shaped who he was.
Wow. And Bishop Lakey writes in the biography of the bishops that your dad would always support and stop by a shoe shine stand. And indicated that he had this thing because I think he said either he shined shoes as a kid, and so whenever they would be at a conference, you know, he would always stop by, get his shoes shined, or share or plant a seed to whoever was shining shoes.
Yeah. He just saw people. He never, there was nobody, he didn't think anybody was better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say one other thing about his schooling. He dropped out of school at age 14.
Okay.
And of course he served in the Navy. But I lost my thought. But
he came back
to high school after he went to the Navy.
Okay.
He went back and went to the 8th grade to finish high school after he was in the.
Wow, that is something.
He graduated with his youngest sister, so he was. I mean, that's amazing to me.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Well, listen, I have enjoyed this time with you all. Sister Joan Gilmore Oglesby says hello. To the Broomfields, and she tries to keep up with you, but you walk faster than she can. But listen, thank you all so much for sharing. I know there's so much more, you know, that we could talk about, and I'm intrigued and wanting to learn more about him and to read some of his writings. I'm just fascinated with him. And Mrs. Broomfield, always a pleasure to see you. And she's a good, staunch member of the Shy Temple, CME Church, where her pastor is Reverend Dr. James Clements, my good friend and my good brother. But my brothers and sisters, we've had this opportunity to share with the Broomfield family, Sister Wileen, Brother Leonard, and Sister Talisha. And we thank God for the memory and for the life of Bishop Broomfield. And we know that his spirit still lives among us in the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. May God bless you and may God keep you all. And again, thank you so much for sharing with me this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was fun. I appreciate the opportunity to share with the Broomfield family. And now, brothers and sisters, we are going to share with the family of Bishop Chester Arthur Kirdendoll Jr., the 35th Bishop of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And I am going to bring the family members up at this time. And there's Sister Kenya and Sister Angela and Brother Van. Let me say good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hope you all are doing well. Kenya, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Good. We can hear you. Glad to have you all on this evening to share your memories about your grandfather, Bishop Kirdendoll. And you know, we're just going to start right off the bat. You know, I want to put this is an early picture up, a beautiful picture of his family. What do you all remember about your grandfather growing up? And anyone can just chime in.
Ken is the oldest.
Okay, Kenya.
Okay, since I'm the oldest, I'll take the lead. One thing, K-Tail, one of the cousins, I think he's floating somewhere in the backstage. Do you see him?
I don't see him, not yet. I think I got everybody on in the Kirdendoll family, so maybe he's trying to get on.
Okay, then. All right, Angela,
Okay.
can you text him and see if he can get on? Anyway,
I'm looking out for.
Okay, so my memories of my grandparents, being the oldest of the six of us that are participating today, I remember being at the home in Jackson, Tennessee, my grandparents' home when my grandfather was the president of Lane. And I spent a lot of time there. I remember being at the house on Christmas, and we had a tradition of opening one present on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And so that was always fun. And I remember my grandmother making corn dogs, and we eating up. Well, I was the only one around at that time. Eating corn dogs, at the house. And Big Daddy was Big Daddy and Big Mama to us. And Big Daddy was, always working. He was a businessman. And Big Mama, she took care of the home. But then we did spend time with Big Daddy as well. So my early memories of them are at the home in Lane when he was president of the college. And then in 1970, he became the bishop.
Yes.
In the church. And so then they moved to Birmingham, Alabama. And that was a fun time. I think, Angela, what's the history on this picture?
That's when he was going from Birmingham to St. Louis.
Okay.
Okay.
That's when he got made senior bishop.
When he was made senior bishop, right? And they installed a senior bishop. That was probably his installation service.
Right. And so in Birmingham, I remember all of us being at the house in Birmingham and spending the summers there and picking pecans on the yard. I mean, there were hundreds. It seemed like it was hundreds of cherries then, but we used to pick pecans, hang out, go shopping with our grandmother. My grandfather had a garden in the back. And I guess maybe that was his way of relaxing. And so that's the house in Jackson. And so that's my father, Chester, directly behind my grandmother.
Okay.
And then Van and Angela's mom is Loretta, the only daughter. And then K-Pale is standing behind Big Daddy, and K-Pale was the youngest son.
The youngest son. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and so Angela and Anthony, y'all may kill me, or Van, y'all may kill me for sending in that picture, but that's one of my favorite pictures.
She sent some doozies in, y'all, some wonderful pictures to share and all. So what about you, Angela, Van, Capel? Please chime in, because we know a lot about Bishop Kirdendoll as bishop, but the point of this is to learn about him as a father, a grandfather, and so forth. So, Angela, what do you remember about your grandfather?
What a lot of people don't know is that Granddaddy, Big Daddy, had to overcome a speech impediment. Granddaddy stuttered.
Oh,
really badly.
Okay.
And so by the time, of course, he was a bishop, he had learned how to kind of orate without a lot of that coming through in his speaking. But I think he was really quiet a lot of times.
Okay.
And I think that may have contributed to that. I don't know. He kind of let us do what we wanted to do. When they moved and lived in Birmingham, they had a house that had stairs on it. They had this carpet that would y'all remember, it would make those little it'd ball up. And so we were always sliding down the stairs, and Granddaddy would come in from work, and it was almost like he would come in through the kitchen side, and he'd walk in, and there we would be sliding down the stairs or swinging off the banisters, and he would stand there and just kind of look at us with this "have you all gone crazy" kind of look. But he never really fussed at us for doing it. We just like to, run up and down the stairs. And Anthony Van, one summer, KPL might remember, he became obsessed with trying to catch squirrels. The house had a lot of chimneys in it, and there were squirrels. The squirrels didn't come in the house, but for some reason that summer, it became like an obsession. And so Anthony and KPL and I would set up. Well, Granddaddy had all these squirrel traps or whatever for whatever reason. So we would set the traps up at the chimney, trying to catch the squirrels when they came in the house. So when Big Daddy would come home from work, he would check in with Anthony to see if he had caught any squirrels that day. But of course, we never caught any squirrels. I don't know what we would have done if we caught the squirrels.
Right.
And he encouraged us to try to catch the squirrels.
We used to catch birds. It would be birds instead of
squirrels.
No, but we were supposed to catch squirrels, but we never caught one squirrel. We caught half the birds in Birmingham, but we never caught a squirrel.
But no squirrels. Now, who's on this picture here?
Angela, family historian.
So of course that's Big Daddy.
Okay.
And the lady sitting right next to him is his mother. Her name was Maggie.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure who the lady is sitting next to her.
Okay.
But the baby that's closest to my granddaddy, who's sitting on his mama's lap, that's my brother, Van. And then I'm the baby that's on the far left of the picture.
Okay.
Yeah, I was asleep.
That's a beautiful picture. Beautiful. Van, tell us what you remember about your granddad.
I have a different set of memories because my grandfather had a view. I'm sorry for the lights change now in a way that's not very helpful to you, but
that's okay.
But my he had a view that was an old timey view that his granddaughters shouldn't travel in their teenage years, and so he let me and KPL and Chester travel with him a little bit in our teenage years. So I got a chance to see him in action.
Okay.
At the church conventions.
Oh, wow.
Conferences. And it was I think it had quite an impact on me and on KPL and on Chester because of the dignity with which he carried himself.
Yes.
And the respect and the regard that people had for him. To see, I'm sorry, this light's not, but to see a Black man in that day and age with so much dignity, so much respect. And I think we're very proud to be his grandsons, very proud to be his grandchildren. And he took us relatively seriously. I mean, he was very formal. I mean, he wasn't chewing bubble gum and rolling around the floor with us. I mean, he was always in some ways Bishop Kirdendoll.
Yeah.
Us.
And I've yet to see a picture of him without a shirt and tie or a jacket on.
One time I saw him in the shower. He had on a shirt and tie. I don't know what was going on. But KPL, what do you remember?
I was gonna wear my shirt and tie, but I said, "Now let me be comfortable."
I'm glad. I'm glad.
But like Van said, we went to Detroit. Kansas City, Flint, Michigan, to all the conferences, meeting all different people, preachers, different churches, and seeing him in action.
Wow. Now, what kind of orator was he? And do you all have any footage, any recording of your granddad preaching or speaking?
I'm not. No, but since you have asked us, invited us to participate in this, I've been doing some research, and I think that it's going to be one of my things to do is to try to find a little bit more history and more artifacts of my grandfather, because he was always Big Daddy. My fondest memories were walking with him in his garden, looking at his eggplants and his tomatoes and things like that. But so he was always Big Daddy, and I knew he was a bishop in the CME church and had been president of Lane. But looking back at some of the things that I've come across about some of the work that he has done, I understand now, you know, how involved he was with the church and with the college. And so he did a lot. And so I want to see if I can locate some of that, some recording and documentation.
One thing I would just add is that, you know, he was at the time when he became a college president in 1950, he was, if not the youngest, one of the youngest college presidents, black or white, in the country. He may have been the youngest.
Wow.
And so from 1950 to 1970, the vast majority of the buildings that are still standing on Lane's campus, he built. And this was extremely difficult to, you know, in those days of segregation and discrimination, to be able to get together the money, the capital, the bank loans, and to actually be a builder in those days. Had he, in a fair world, he might have been one of the great builders.
Sure would.
To be able to build that much in that short period of time in such a small town in those days. And he was quite proud of that. And he would, in his older years, you know, he lost his sight because of glaucoma brought on by diabetes. And so he would kind of sit in his recliner, but he would never tire of recounting. Yeah, there he is with Bishop Brown. He loved Bishop Brown and he loved Bishop Graves.
Yeah.
And but there he is with the cane. You see, he's lost his sight by that point.
Right.
And he felt that it would be an embarrassment to the CME church to have a blind bishop. Bishop. Oh yes, he thought that would be an embarrassment. So he decided he didn't want to do that. That said, we got the benefit, those of us who were in Jackson with him in his later years, of hearing him recount some of these achievements. And he would always say, you know, things don't just happen. You have to make things happen.
Right.
One thing he would say over and over again, you have to make things happen. And, you know, I think that was one of the lessons he passed down to his grandchildren.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask what kind of wisdom did he impart in you? Was he that kind of grandfather that was always teaching, in a teaching mode, or always trying to give you some encouragement or to inspire?
Well, I know, when Big Daddy and Big Mama were living in Jackson and I was in Memphis, I would come down and see them a little bit more. Yeah, that's from my high school graduation, and that's my sister Karsha there. And I remember Big Daddy would always ask me, have you thought about getting certified to teach? All right, would you consider teaching? And I was like, no, Big Daddy, I'm not thinking about teaching. And it's amazing now that my sister, she is an educator. I'm also an educator. So in some regards, I feel like I've come kind of full circle with that. Right. And I really, in doing some of the research about just some of the history of my grandfather's work, I found that he was a big proponent of education for the church, you know, for the pastors. And he was on some initiatives to ensure that the pastors had a strong education foundation. And in 1949, he wrote I'm not sure if it was a book or an article, but it was about improving the educational program of the local church. So education was really important to him. And as Van said, my grandfather was a mover and a shaker, you know, and I talked to my dad yesterday and he shared with me, he did mention the number of buildings that Big Daddy was able to raise the money for and erect on Lane's campus. And I didn't know this, but Big Daddy had Einstein come to Lane College and spoke to the students there. And I was like, Daddy, are you sure? And he was like, yes. And Marian Anderson came for the 75th anniversary of Lane. And there's a picture of Miss Anderson and our grandmother in one of the yearbooks. So my grandfather was, you know, really made things happen and my father said that Big Daddy was really able to cast a vision and bring people on board. And I think that's a mark of a good leader.
Well, I think
Kenya.
Bishop. No, go ahead.
I have the piano that Marian Anderson practiced on when she did the concert at Lane College.
Are you kidding? Wow.
I still have it.
That's an, and now, you know, when I get off, I'm gonna have to see if I can go on digital online yearbooks and see if I can find a copy of that. That's amazing. But I'm not surprised. Your grandfather, I believe, was the first college president elected to the bench. And we've since had, you know, seminary presidents elected, Bishop Thomas Brown and Bishop Marvin Frank Thomas. And I think we have someone else that's joining us.
Chester.
Hey, Chester.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Chester, brother, you got to work on that lighting a little bit so we can see you, man.
I sure will.
That's the namesake. That's Chester Arthur Kirdendoll in the living flesh.
In the living flesh. Well, welcome, brother.
Wow.
And Brother Capel, I didn't get to welcome you too. I just kind of brought you in, but glad to have you as well. And so we were just sharing some memories, and I'm putting up some pictures. Tell me about your grandmother as well.
Alice Elizabeth Singleton Kirdendoll.
Yes, ma'am.
Big Mama.
Big Daddy called her Suge.
Y'all gonna have to let K. Pell talk at some point, but go ahead, Angela.
He called her Suge.
Big Daddy called her Suge.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't she call him Darling?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Capel, what do you remember about your grandmother? And Chester, you chime in as well.
One of the sweet, if not the sweetest person you will ever meet.
Yeah.
I have only seen her get upset one time. I don't know if I need to bring that up, but
I won't tell a soul.
When was it?
You mean in St. Louis?
We was in St. Louis.
Oh. Okay, you put it out here now. You got to tell us. You got to. Okay. You can clean it up.
When we was in St. Louis, when they was living in St. Louis, me and Van was visiting for the summer.
Okay.
So we used to, when they used to go to bed, we used to sneak out and walk around in the neighborhood, and then come back in, go to bed. One particular time we snuck out, we came back, the door was locked. So we said, "Oh, how are we gonna?" Of course, no cell phones back then.
Right.
How are we gonna get in? What happened? What happened? We had to ring the doorbell, and they let us in. And just the disappointing look on her face, it was just
so devastating. And it wasn't like we were doing anything. I mean, we were just walking around. I mean, it wasn't like we were drug dealers. I mean, we were just kids. But, they would go to bed so early, so anyway, I told K-Pel, I'll handle it. I rang the door. K-Pel was looking at his shoes, and then I thought I was gonna be brave and bold and explain myself. And when the door opened, and they were looking at us like we was just the lowliest of the low, and I just looked at my.
So both of them were at the door when it opened.
Yeah, that's how I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like. Anyway. But I'll echo that she was so sweet, and she used to wear these rings. And the people in the church loved her so much they grab her hands and hold the hands and squeeze her. Oh, Miss Kirdendoll, Miss Kirdendoll. And she wouldn't say anything. She would get in a car and her fingers would have been squeezed so much that she was in a lot of pain. But she wanted to, as the senior bishop's wife, she wanted to greet everybody and meet everybody.
And everybody wanted to greet her. Yeah. Chester, what do you remember about your grandparents?
Well, they were basically everything. Anything that we needed.
Okay.
We had a lot with our own parents, with our uncles and aunts. They were great. They always were motivators, but just to see, where they got it from, just to see the example that was put forth, that it's not about who I am. It's about what I do for somebody else, and that's what and that's what they were. If you wasn't part of the CME church and didn't know that there was bishop and first lady, you would just think that they were just normal, everyday people who cared about everybody.
Wow. Even after he became a bishop.
Even after
he became a bishop. That's amazing. I got to take a statement back because I said I've never seen him in anything but a shirt and tie. And then I forgot, Sister Kenya, you sent me this one.
Yeah.
Now, what was this occasion?
We don't know. My sister, she has a lot of the family pictures that she inherited from my dad.
Okay.
And she sent us this picture, and we were like, what? That was the first time I ever saw Big Daddy outside of a tie, a shirt and tie. I mean, even when he was at home lounging,
right,
he had on suit pants, starch shirt.
Very formal.
Yes, and my daddy said Big Daddy wore, he said my father wore a tie every day, even on Saturday.
Yeah. I want to say one thing that
now I know. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. When I was in law school, I was growing my hair out. I had dreadlocks.
Okay.
And so now I didn't cut my dreadlocks. They cut me. I had male pattern baldness jumped on me. But I remember, but my grandfather was blind. And so I went to see him in Jackson. Obviously, other people in the family had mentioned that I had very strange hair.
Okay.
And so we were talking, it was getting very, very formal. And then finally, and I could tell he had something on his mind, but he didn't quite know how to get around to it.
Right.
And he finally said, son, might I touch your hair? And so I said, oh, God, yes, sir. So I leaned over and he touched it and his eyebrows almost jumped off his head. Trying to figure out what this animal was on his grandson's head.
So he had already heard that you had.
He had heard that I had dreadlocks, but I don't think he'd ever seen dreadlocks, and then he lost his sight. So he's trying to figure out what this was, and then his eyebrows, he had those big bushy eyebrows. They jumped up almost off his head, and then he sat back and he was trying to figure out how to counsel me, and he said, "You're doing so well. You could be a senator. You could do so many things if you conduct yourself accordingly." In other words, cut that crazy hair. But
I thought I had a picture of you.
There it is. There it is. That's the same day.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and that's Angela's children, DJ and Brandon and Big Daddy Black. But anyway, anyway, so he even then he was still very formal.
Yeah.
He's very, diplomatic, but also very clear that I had taken the wrong road and needed to do something else with my life.
So how long afterwards did you indeed cut your dreads?
Maybe another year and a half. Well, my dreads cut me, but maybe
right. They cut you.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just I'll never forget that conversation because just watching him try to figure out how to counsel a young person without breaking that trust. That when a young person's looking up to you, you don't want to put them down. Sure. But you also do have to give them good counsel, and that's how he chose to do that.
So were you?
I remember seeing Big Daddy I remember seeing Big Daddy in a pair of jeans and tennis shoes. He had come home. They had moved back to Jackson, and as Anthony has mentioned, he had lost his sight. Mm-hmm. And one of his friends, who I don't remember how long their friendship had been, but it had been many, many years. Who was also blind, had come to Jackson to try to help Granddaddy adjust to doing things, kind of independently. Well, I want to say the man's name was Sheldon, but I know that's not correct. Anyway, he was going to, teach Granddaddy how to walk around the block, that kind of thing. So KPL's mother, Aunt Tommy, convinced Granddaddy that he needed a pair of jeans and some tennis shoes so that he could, you can't walk in dress shoes around the block. So we, some of those mom jeans that were real soft or whatever. So she convinced him that he needed a pair of jeans and some tennis shoes. Granddaddy was not happy.
Not happy.
But he put them on. He put the jeans on. He put the tennis shoes on. He went for the little walk with his friend. When he came back, he was like, nope, we will never do that again. He did not like it at all.
At all.
He was comfortable in his dress slacks and his dress shirt and his tie.
But he
taught me how to tie a tie when I was 12.
Really?
I was 12 years old. For whatever reason, I was down there visiting, and I got obsessed with wanting to learn how to tie dress tie, So he taught me how to do that. When, fast forward several years,
right,
and I was able to repay the favor. The last Thanksgiving dinner that we had together.
Okay.
I was able to tie his tie for him.
Okay.
So that meant a lot to me.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, he came from that era, if you all recall, or you've seen pictures where, as a college president, he was always dressed, even at football games. Folks wore blazers, jackets, hats. They dressed up to go to the football games. But, Bishop Kirdendoll, was in that same era with Dr. Benjamin Mays at Morehouse College. And these were very stately men, very regal, great orators, great nurturers of men. I'm reading so many comments, of people sharing that they were students under, Bishop Kirdendoll. And I'm pretty sure, Kenya, that I would hope that Lane would have some footage somewhere, prayerfully, of Bishop as a college president, if you will, but hopefully they would have some as well. Well, I want to put a few more pictures up. I really appreciate you all sharing some time with us and just sharing. Now, who is this young man?
That is Angela's son, Brandon.
Okay, that's your nephew.
That's my nephew.
Okay.
That's my son, DJ.
That's your son, DJ. Okay. And of course, let me put this one up.
That's my mother and my father.
Your mother and your father. Tell us about your mother. Was she a lot like your dad or her mom?
No.
No.
My mom was had a much sharper tongue.
Okay.
She was much more, I would say, more of a forceful personality.
Okay.
My grandmother was sweet. She knew how to get her way.
Right.
But, she make you like it.
Yeah. That's a nice picture. Very nice picture. Let me put a few more up here. And some I might have repeated, but that's okay.
All the cousins.
All the cousins. Mm-hmm.
And that's my sister Karsha's kids, Isaiah and Carrington.
Oh, okay.
Look how big Isaiah is.
Wow. Oh, he's taller than that now.
Wow.
Yes. And the grandkids with your late uncle.
KPL and Chelsea, why don't you talk about your father right there?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, because he was very active in the church.
He was very active. In fact, I saw him last in Birmingham, I believe, at the General Conference about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Now, he was almost like Big Mama.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very much.
As far as the temperament, now Dad was, be a layman in the church for years.
Mm-hmm.
And the president of laymen.
Okay.
And he loved going to all the conferences. General, the East Tennessee Conference, West Tennessee. He was at all of them.
Yes. Yeah, he was very engaged and very involved. Now, Chester, is this your dad?
So That's my father on the left.
Okay.
Chester, and Big K is what we called Uncle K Pale, at least the other cousin. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. So listen, as we prepare to close, and you all have been so generous with your time, I appreciate spending this time with you and learning just a little bit more about your granddad and your grandmother and the tremendous legacy that they've left here in the church. What would you say to us watching the CME? What should we remember your grandfather for? What is that one thing that the CME Church is better because Chester Arthur Kirdendoll passed through, and because he did what he said? What should we remember him for?
Let's start in reverse order. Okay.
Okay.
Chester, the youngest.
Well, I say pride.
Mm-hmm.
He was so prideful of the CME Church.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, everybody, everything, CME, he was prideful. He loved it. He enjoyed it. He wanted everyone to be as enthusiastic and as zealous as he was about the CME Church.
Mm-hmm.
And to piggyback on the pride, is something that Van said earlier, that he could have been senior bishop 4 more years, but since he went blind, he did not want to be a blind bishop for the CME Church. So he stepped down and someone else became senior bishop.
I still find that to be such an amazing story. I did not know that piece about him. Brother Van?
No. I'm 4 minutes older than my sister, so
okay.
Don't demote me.
My apologies, sir. All right, Sister Angela, your turn.
There was an entire generation of ministers, bishops that considered my grandfather their personal mentor. Mm-hmm. He made it his business to impart information, to make sure that people understood decorum. And so there's a whole, what I call, guard of bishops that came after my grandfather that he personally was available to try to guide and ensure that they not only presented themselves in the best light, but they represented the CME Church, mm-hmm. and that they understood how to lead the people that followed them.
Wow, that's good. All right, now let's hear from your older brother.
I know, right?
I should have gone before her.
You want to go last, Van? You want to go last?
I'm just saying. I was going to say what she said. If I had gone first, then she wouldn't have nothing to say. But no, you're the oldest. I'll let you go last. But no, I was going to say the same thing as Angela, which is that the importance of not just mentorship but sponsorship. Mm-hmm. He didn't just give these young men. Now even that generation is passing on the Bishop Graves, the Bishop Brown, and all those guys. I remember when they were young guys, and he didn't just throw advice at them. He sponsored them. He made phone calls on their behalf. He cared about them. He thought about them. And he invested in them, and they saw themselves as kind of carrying on a certain kind of tradition of very regal, very, very strong leadership.
Yes.
And so more than the buildings, he built people.
Right.
And both of those matter a lot.
That's good. That's good. And the oldest, last but not least,
gone first. But I just want to comment on the comments that Van and Angela made about the mentorship, because I just want to say that Bishop Brown and Bishop Graves, they were like family to me. because of the time that they spent with our family and our grandfather. And so, yes, he sold into them and they sold into others, and it has multiplied. I think one of the things that my grandfather should be remembered for is that work that he did to lay a solid foundation, or to build the educational foundation within the CME church for the pastors and the laity. I believe that the work that he did around education and administration is important, you know, and so I think that's an important thing for a part of his legacy.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I am so appreciative to all of you for taking a few moments to share with me this evening about your grandfather and your grandmother and your parents and all of the wonderful members of the Kirdendoll family. And we appreciate you tremendously, and we hope that his memory will be celebrated as the church celebrates 150 years of service. Now, I won't ask you, are you all active CMEs, or shall we end now?
I think K. Pell and Chester representing the family very well.
They represent the fam. Okay, that's good.
But I will say that I think everybody in the family has benefited from the spiritual and religious instruction, both by what they said, but also how they carried themselves.
Yeah.
Bishop Chester Arthur Kirdendoll and Alice Elizabeth Singleton Kirdendoll, they lived their sermon.
Yes, they did. And do you all ever talk about them to your children?
I do.
Not enough.
Not enough.
My boys are listening in a little bit, and I want to talk to them more about my grandfather and my grandmother.
Yeah.
They need to know. K. Pell and Chester, what about your kids?
No, they not, like you said, not enough. When I say Big Daddy, they think my daddy, because that's what they call my daddy Big Daddy. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to my kids about it because when I became a minister in the CME church, everybody used to ask me about my grandfather, and so my kids always wonder, like, who are they talking about? So we've had the conversations. I mean, there's more that I could tell them, but I just, show them some pictures. I do have a couple of his old sermons. I let them see those, and they are actually, if you see all of our kids, you can see some of our grandparents in our children.
Right. That's an excellent way to end this conversation. And Reverend Chester, forgive me for not acknowledging you as a fellow pastor, but I'm so grateful. And Sister Kenya, God bless you, and thank you so much for gathering the cousins up and sharing pictures, and for all of you for spending this time with us. And we pray God's continued blessings on the Kirdendoll family and all the descendants. And you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Right. Bye-bye. 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 Well, this was absolutely wonderful. And I know hopefully we all are the better because of it. Spending some time with the Broomfields and the Kirkendalls. And this ends my conversation with the families. And on, again, this Sunday, for those of you who joined me later, I am very pleased to have a conversation with the 58th Bishop of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, Bishop Sylvester Williams, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me as we share with Bishop Williams. This concludes our conversation. Have a super blessed evening in the Lord. God loves you. I love you. And always remember, Black lives do matter. All right.